Can Zhen Huan, blessed with both beauty and talent, truly outshine all in the imperial harem and enjoy everlasting favor? When we were alone, Xianling's gaze lingered on my face for a moment. Almost hesitantly he asked, Huan, you didn't deliberately arrange for Lu Ben, did you? I was momentarily puzzled and hummed in response, looking at him and asking, what do you mean? He didn't continue, just gave a dry laugh and said, nothing. Suddenly I understood, and a chill swept through my mind. I almost couldn't hide the cold smirk on my lips as I looked directly at him. Does your majesty think I instructed Lu Ben to frame Empress Hua? My indignation made my tone harsher than intended. Does your majesty see me as someone who would falsely accuse another concubine just to win favor? I would neither dare nor deign to do such a thing. If I had orchestrated Lu Ben to accuse Empress Hua to save Shenronghua, I could have done so much earlier, not wait until her life was in jeopardy. I knelt down. If your majesty does not trust me, Eunuch Li probably hasn't gone far. You can retract the decree. His expression changed rapidly with my words, and he said emotionally, Huan, it was my suspicion. If I didn't trust you, I wouldn't have punished Empress Hua. I felt a deep sorrow and blurted out, if your majesty trusted me, you wouldn't have asked that question just now. His face darkened instantly, and he said in a low voice, Huan. Overwhelmed, I suddenly looked up to meet his slightly icy gaze. I managed a sad smile, as if it was too painful to smile anymore, and turned my head to kneel slowly, saying, I spoke out of turn. His tone paused slightly. As long as you know. Get up. He reached out to help me up. I instinctively pulled away, tucking my hands into my sleeves, and respectfully said, Thank you, your majesty. His extended hand stiffened for a moment, and he sighed almost inaudibly. Murong noble consort has served me well and been considerate for a long time. Although sometimes overbearing, today I am truly disappointed. I remained silent, bowing my head, and after a moment said, I understand. He remained silent, looking up at the stars in the sky. The cool chill of early spring made his breath visibly misty, ephemeral and almost non-existent. As we were alone, the red palace lantern swayed gently in the wind like indifferent, silent ghost shadows, casting a chilling coldness in one's heart. Eventually Xianling said, It's cold outside, come inside with me. I followed him silently, about to enter the western study room when a woman's loud voice broke the night's stillness. Such a forceful and imperious voice could only belong to one person, Empress Hua. Xianling and I exchanged a quick look, surprise and annoyance evident in his eyes. I was also surprised. Li Chang couldn't have informed Murong Shirlan so quickly for her to have arrived in such haste. Perhaps there was a leak from Lu Ben's end. As I was pondering this, Li Chang hurried in, reporting, Your Majesty, Empress Hua requests an audience. Xianling, not wanting to elaborate, simply asked, What's the matter? Li Chang bowed and said, This servant had just announced Your Majesty's decree at Chang'an Palace and hadn't yet reached the Imperial Medical Bureau when Empress Hua arrived with physicians Zhang Muyang and Zhang Muyi, requesting an audience. He hesitated. Empress Hua seems to have urgent matters. Xianling asked, Did you convey my decree to her? Li Chang replied, Not yet. Empress Hua arrived in such haste that this servant had no chance to speak. Glancing at me, Xianling instructed Li Chang, Since you haven't yet, drop the formalities. Bring them in. Li Chang bowed and soon returned with them. Empress Hua appeared unaware of the situation, her face beaming with joy, a sight I found incredibly eerie. Xianling allowed them to rise but remained engrossed in his documents, asking indifferently, What's so urgent that you needed to see me? Empress Hua, undeterred by Xianling's cool demeanor, excitedly announced, Your Majesty, great joy. I've heard that physicians Zhang Muyang and Zhang Muyi have developed a cure for the epidemic, so I brought them here to report to you. Xianling, initially indifferent, brightened up immediately upon hearing this, stood up abruptly, and his documents fell onto the desk with a slap. Is that true? Empress Hua's smile shone brighter under the candlelight. Indeed. But I'm not well versed in medicine, so I'll let the physicians explain. Physician Zhang Muyi stepped forward and began. The 4 seasons and the yin and yang govern the cycle of all living things and are the basis of life and death. Disrupting this balance causes calamities, while following it prevents severe illnesses. The 6 pathogenic factors, wind, cold, summer heat, dampness, dryness, and fire, enter through the mouth and nose. Epidemics arise when these factors invade the upper burner and lungs, clashing with the internal organs. If the pathogenic factors transform into heat, damp heat accumulates and festers. If they turn cold, sudden damp cold arises, troubling the spleen and stomach. If the spleen yang is extinguished first, followed by the dissipation of the vital energy, it can lead to the collapse of yang. Without timely intervention, the depletion of body fluids can result in the collapse of both yin and yang. After his lengthy explanation, Xianling, growing impatient, waved him off. Cut to the chase, no need for the pedantry. Jiang Muyang, finding Jiang Muyi's explanation tedious, simplified. The pathogen of the epidemic enters through the mouth and nose, often due to unclean food, damaging organs like the spleen, stomach, and intestines. We've developed a prescription from ancient texts named Epidemic Emergency Pill, composed of patchouli leaves, masla, sandalwood, costus, agarwood, clove, angelica dihurica, magnolia bark, papaya, poria, euphorbia, tuckahoe, licorice, shunshu, borneal, lotus leaf, realgar, and mercury sulfate. It's warm in nature, dispels dampness, warms the liver, strengthens the kidneys, and boosts vital energy. Xianling hummed thoughtfully. Have all the physicians at the Imperial Medical Bureau reviewed this prescription and deemed it feasible? Jiang Muyang confirmed. Yes, we've administered it to several eunuchs who are ill, and it has proven effective. Xianling's face brightened with joy, clapping his hands in approval. Excellent. During this exchange, Empress Hua softly exclaimed as she staggered, nearly falling. Standing behind her, I instinctively supported her. Noticing it was me, a flash of disdain crossed her eyes as she subtly shrugged off my hand and composed herself. I've been improper. As attendants rushed to assist her, Xianling inquired, What's wrong, suddenly feeling unwell? Seizing the opportunity, Jiang Muyi explained, the Empress had heard of the possibility of an ancient cure for the epidemic in old texts and has not slept for days searching through books, which has weakened her. Empress Hua, looking pale with dark circles under her eyes, indeed seemed unrest. Xianling, moved, assisted her to sit. You've worked hard, my love. Empress Hua, holding onto Xianling's sleeve, teared up. I know I'm not smart enough to serve you well, only causing you anger. Her voice grew softer and more touching. So I did everything I could to ease your Majesty's worries. As she dabbed her tears, disregarding the physician's presence, Xianling found it inappropriate and summoned some eunuchs, followed Jiang physician to deliver the medicine to Shenronghua Zhenju Hall, then distribute it to other palace residents infected with the epidemic. Jiang Muyang and Jiang Muyi, feeling awkward in this situation, were relieved to leave. Empress Hua, caught off guard, asked, Shenronghua? Xianling calmly stated, Yes, I've decreed to restore Shan's position. I was mistaken about her before. Empress Hua's surprised expression flickered momentarily, then she gracefully said, That's unfair to Sister Shan. You should compensate her well. Turning to me with a smile, It's also great news for Consort Shen. You can finally be at ease now. I returned a faint smile, staring into her seemingly vacant eyes. Thank you for your concern, Empress Hua. Empress Hua glanced at me, her voice dropping to a seductive whisper. I dare not ask for your Majesty's forgiveness for my past rashness, but I beseech you not to stay angry at me, lest it harm your health. I am but a humble being, insignificant. Yet, your Majesty's well-being is crucial to the southwestern battles and the welfare of the people. Xianling sighed. All right, you've made a significant contribution today. If this remedy truly cures the epidemic, it will be a blessing for the whole world. I am not one to misjudge rewards and punishments. Hearing this, Empress Hua cried even harder, nearly collapsing into Xianling's arms, where he continued to comfort her in a low voice. I could hardly believe that Empress Hua, who always appeared so dominant, could show such tenderness. Feeling extremely awkward and pained, I turned my head away, unable to watch the intimate scene between Xianling and Empress Hua any longer. I silently bowed and excused myself. Xianling noticed my departure. His lips moved as if to say something, but he ultimately remained silent, continuing to comfort Empress Hua. The plush carpet muffled my footsteps as I softly closed the door behind me. Li Chong, waiting outside, anxiously rubbed his hands together, seeing me as if I was a lifeline. He hurriedly asked. Your Highness, should the decree concerning the Jiang physicians and Empress Hua be announced? Noting my upset expression, he lowered his voice. I should have asked His Majesty, but given the situation inside. He gestured subtly towards the study. Please have mercy on this servant. I replied quietly. Given the circumstances, it seems unnecessary for you to inquire further. If there were to be a decree now, it might rather be one of promotion. Feeling a wave of discomfort and irritation, I supported myself with the railing and left. The night wind whistled past, making the intricate tassels of my jade earrings clink together, producing a jarring sound. For a moment that was all I could hear, choosing to ignore everything else around me. He was right, or perhaps he had never been wrong. He had to consider his empire and victories. Even if he was right, I still harbored resentment towards his actions, despite my compliant and silent demeanor. The next day, Xianling simply said to me, I have to consider the bigger picture. Holding a cup of bird's nest soup, I stirred it gently and replied, Yes, I understand. Seeing the dark circles under his eyes, I secretly sneered. Rumor had it that Empress Hua had spent the night in the eastern chamber of Yuan Hall, likely resulting in his poor rest. In the imperial harem, a woman's future and favor are often determined in the private quarters, while a man's grand plans are also tied to his bedchamber. Amidst tender affections, the smoke of battle might dissipate. Or perhaps I shouldn't say this, but a silent agreement was reached. Xianling yawned several times, eventually feeling embarrassed. Don't worry. It's a time of need and I have no choice. I haven't forgotten about Shenronghua's matter, and I won't let it go easily. I smiled faintly. Your Majesty's well-being is paramount. I have no worries. For several days, Xianling did not visit my Tangli palace. Chun'er and I strolled through the Shanglin garden, admiring the newly bloomed apricot flowers. The blossoms were vibrant, almost as if they painted the sky red. I was dressed as before, in a lake green robe that seemed oddly out of place amidst the pink blooms. Chun'er pouted. The Emperor hasn't visited for a while. He hasn't forgotten about sister and me, has he? She playfully placed an apricot blossom near her temple and asked, Does it look nice? I pinched her cheek and laughed. Even if he forgets me, he won't forget you, you clever little thing. Chun'er went ahead and placed the flower in her hair, kicking the fallen petals on the ground with each step she took, laughing softly. It's actually better when the Emperor doesn't visit. When he does, there are so many rules to follow, it's no fun at all. I quickly covered her mouth. You're becoming wilder by the day. You can't just say whatever you please. Be careful, or you might be accused of disrespecting the Emperor. Chun'er looked around in panic, and after realizing there was no one else around, she patted her chest and laughed. You're just trying to scare me. Let's go visit Lady Du. Her belly is starting to show. I nodded and we walked together. At that moment a breeze stirred, scattering the falling petals like a flurry of rain, momentarily dampening my spirits. I looked up at the apricot blossoms filling the sky and thought to myself, another spring has arrived.
Follow us to avoid getting lost and enjoy endless exciting stories. For more content, please go to the Story Wall homepage to view more exciting novels.